Okay, let's do fuzzy grouping. Okay, grouping is where you've got duplicate rows that you want to consolidate. Um, but you need the fuzzy grouping because you get text fields where things are not exactly the same. Like um, somebody hand typed some of these rows and they should be the same, but they fat fingered it, or there's names that aren't quite the same, that sort of thing. So we've got two tables of names, and I unioned those into one group, and then I sorted them, and then I did a date conversion on the date time to a date, and I could have done all of that with a query, and that's definitely the way I should have done it. That's the preferred way of doing it. So let's look at our data real quick. So here's our data. You can see there's first name, last name, birth date, and you see this is that ugly date time, and then this is our new date. And you can see this, here's a person who's totally identical. This person would match up without even using fuzzy. But then we've got, say, this person who's got, this is the first name's identical, but the last name's not quite the same, but their birth date is still the same. So that's probably the same person. We want this to come together, and it'd be real hard to write code to do this for you. So really nice to have this function. Um, so we've got one down here where again they're very similar, but the date is different. So that should these should stay as separate people. And then we've got one here and one here where the dates are the same, but the last name is a little bit different. So those should go together. So that's what our data looks like. And now let's configure so that's our data at this point. So it's right before the fuzzy grouping. So let's look at how we do the fuzzy grouping. Okay, on this first tab, we want a connection to a database for our temp tables that we need. This is not for our data. The data is coming through the flow. Okay, then we have the columns. Okay, you want to select the columns that we want to do the fuzzy matching on. You do not want to select all the other columns. They will pass through anyway, and there's no way to unpass anything. These are going to pass, and all the other columns are going to pass, and it's going to make a whole bunch of new columns. Okay, so once you select them, they will appear down here in this table. So here's the name, and you can alias it. This is incoming, but you will also get this output clean, where it should be the best value from the group of identical values, and you can select the match type. Oops, I shouldn't have clicked that. The match type here, you can select fuzzy or exact. And you only get this if it's text. If it's not text, some sort of date, number, or something like that, it has to be exact. So there's no selection here. But you might have a text field that you want to be exact. So you do get that option. You also can have granularity here. You can select a minimum similarity that you would accept here. Notice you can't change that for the one that has to be exact. Exact means exact, so it has to be 100%. Then we have this similarity percentage column, and you can name that. And of course you don't get that one with this one because that has to be exact. And this talks about numbers. In this text field, you could tell it that, hey, I've got some leading numbers or some trailing numbers, or there's leading and trailing numbers, or there's neither. In this case, it's a name, so there's neither. And down here, you don't get that because it's a number. It's data. And then you can also tell it to ignore certain things, like these. This is the default ones here, and they're just stuff like case and typeface and non-spacing characters, character width. So this is stuff you would normally want to ignore, but you might not want to ignore case. So you might want to make it case sensitive. And that is even available for the numeric, which is kind of strange. Okay, and then we have our last column. Okay, it's going to create a key in. It's going to auto number your data, and then it's going to use that to show you which are duplicates. So it's going to show you that that this is a duplicate of this, and this is a duplicate of this, and right next to that it's going to be the score, the overall score of all the columns together. that you're comparing. And then we have our similarity threshold. The higher this is, the more sensitive, the more it's going to filter out things. So the closer two names are together, the better score it'll get, the higher score it'll get, which is the higher threshold. So like two numbers that are very similar might get a 90%, and so this has got to be below 90%, this threshold similarity, for that to get caught. Otherwise, it'll leave them the same. You know, if you slide this all the way to 95, and there's something that's 94% similar, that is not going to get grouped. It'll stay separate values. And then you have some token delimiters, which is mostly the white space. This is the default. You could throw carriage return in here if you were expecting it. You can also set other delimiters. Okay. Now, once we've done the fuzzy grouping, we can now look at the data. Let's look at that, what the fuzzy grouping gives us. So that was our incoming data. And this is our fuzzy grouping. So you see there's the key in, there's the key out, and there's that score, overall score. And that's, I really should have put the score together with these similarities, because you take the similarities and put them together and you get the overall score. So you can see, remember we had this guy that's completely the same. So what this says is his first record, you know, key 1, so ID 1, and is the same as ID 1. But then this other one, this other duplicate of him, this is row 2, but it's the same as row 1. So this tells you what it's the same as. So this is the same as this. It's the same as itself. And this is the same as 1. And so we have 4. 4 is the same as itself. Row 3 is the same as row 4. So row 3, it needs to be removed because it's the same as row 4. So we'll be filtering on the ones that are the same. Where these two columns are the same, we want to keep those, and the others are duplicates. And so see, you can see there's the percentage, and this has to be higher than that threshold we set. And so you can see, like here, it's last name similarity. So it's the similarity of the last name here. So you can see very similar last names here. And you can see here, this is where it's clean. So you can see what it's gonna come out with, and it's gonna come out with this one, probably because it's alphabetical. So because that starts with a B, so it's gonna keep the bin space one, and it's gonna throw out this. So that's the way the data works. So now we need to clean it up. So we need to go to the next step, which is the conditional split, where we're just going to say key in equals key out, and we want to, and so that's going to flow out the data in this key match flow, which is the arrow coming out of this box. So you name that, and that's a good idea to name that. You have to name it, but it also has a default name down here. This is where the ones that don't match, this is our junk rows. It's a good idea to name that so you don't get confused. So once you do that, you have to do a data conversion because we're going into an Excel worksheet and the data doesn't quite match up going from Excel to going from SQL Server to Excel. But this is also where you're going to strip out the columns. So first we have to define our table. So I've already defined one here, but this is what happens when you do that. You click this, and it tries to build a table for you that's got all the incoming columns, and you can also change the name. So you want to change that name, and you want to delete all the columns you're not using. So you just, you want the name, you want the key out, and you want to change this to something, like ID, and you want this to be something more like fname or whatever. You want to clean all this up, and then you want to go to mappings, and then now you're going to take, here's all this incoming data, a lot of this we don't want, and you're going to just map the ones you do want to that table we just made. You see this is a little different because this one I already made, and I didn't do a very good job of cleaning it up. And of course you can if things don't match up, you can control how you want to fail the component. And I guess we can look at the Final data. So let's just look at the final data real quick. So that's data coming in. That's all that data coming out of the fuzzy match and fuzzy group. And then this is our final data before we get rid of the columns, though. So all the columns are here, but we've gotten rid of the rows that are duplicated. So see, we only have like 6 rows left. And you can see these are all the same. It's all 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, 5, 6, 6, 8, 8. So these all, this is just the non-duplicates. All right.